Hi, I'm Zach. In today's episode, we're going to show you how to make big squat gains using 3 principles that I've used over the years to help numerous athletes get their squat to a higher level. But before we do that, we're going to show you 2 athletes, Nick Sharga and Saquon Barkley, and some of the techniques that I use to drive up their squats.
I first started training at Core here about 10 years ago. When I first came, I was a sophomore in high school, 15 years old. At that point, I was squatting probably between 250 and 300. And I really made some big jumps here. After I graduated high school, I took a whole year off, worked out here for about 16 months straight. Got my squat all the way up to about 650, which helped me walk on a temple, earn a scholarship, and I eventually became #1 player in my position in the country.
When it comes to squatting heavy and making gains, it comes down to 3 major underlining principles. And the first principle is going to be everything in the prior episode you learned on the glute medius and minimus and groin are going to have a significant effect on squat strength. It's also going to have a significant effect on being able to push your knees out when you squat. If you see athletes like this and their knees are caving in, that's because of a weakness in the glute medius minimus chain and also the groin magnus chain. If these muscles are weak, remember we got our major muscle groups when we're squatting are going to primarily be doing the work, the quads and the glutes. But if we have the groin magnus and the adductor chain and also the glute minimus and medius chain working together more as a unit, your strength levels are going to rapidly increase in your squat. The second underlying principle is we have to drive up core strength. You have a huge weight on the back. If you don't have your core supporting the squat, you're not going to get stronger. So we need to train the transverse abdominals, the rectus femoris, we need to make those strong, your obliques and your low back. And we're going to address that in other episodes. But today we're going to focus on the third and underlying principle, which is squat form. So let's go into that and we're going to show you what should I be doing. Should I be squatting wide? Should I be squatting narrow? How do I squat in order to drive up my strength and also protect my knees? So when it comes to squatting, I prefer a box squat. And the reason is because 1, it's more challenging than a regular squat, and 2, because what it's going to do is going to help develop the posterior chain. It's also going to take a lot of pressures off the knees. So long term for athletes, it's going to be less wear and tear on the knees. So let's go into the box squat and what we do. So first off here is measuring a 90-degree knee angle. So you got to remember that that athletes, I always train around 90 degrees. Sometimes I go a little bit lower here and there, but most of the time I'm training 90 degrees. Because 15 degrees below 90 degrees, you're going to be strong. There's scientific proof behind that. So if you train at 90 degrees, 15 degrees below, you're also going to be strong at that angle. And for athletes, we don't really need to train that much lower. Maybe you could make an argument for wrestlers and things like that really have to get down, or UFC fighters, but for general athletes that are just trying to get fast, this is a great position for them. So what is 90 degrees here? So we're looking at the center of the kneecap here to the center of the hip. So if you notice here, I'm pretty much within that area here for the box squat. So here's what you do. So with the box squat here, and if you notice here, I like taking a little bit of wider grip here. The more you're in like this, okay, and your hands are in, the more you're going to be concaved down into this position here. So I want to really open up. So I want to allow the arms to get wide. You get really outside feet and shoulder width. So this is pretty good right here. Here's too narrow around here. What we're doing here is we're trying to, when we box squat, we're trying to sit back. And we're not trying to go here like this, okay? We're trying to sit back. And the reason that we're sitting back is because we're developing the posterior chain. If we're going to get faster and stronger, we want to really focus on developing the glutes and the quads. Too many people, when they squat, they come here and they do this. That's quad dominant. The posterior chain is what is going to drive your strength. The quads is what is going to drive your acceleration. So you need both. That's why we squat this way. So it's important to realize that a box squat is 5 to 10% harder than a regular squat. So if you can box squat 400, then you should be able to regular squat 5 or 10% more than that. That's why box squats drive up your squats so much more than regular squats. Now let's look at this exercise front on here, okay? So what I like doing is, you know, there's people that go to the extremes and they do a sumo squat. So sumo squat, if you get super wide, right, that's going to develop more of your groin and more of your glute medius, okay? The closer you are in, some people, they say, okay, you got to squat like this. This is going to be way more quad dominant. So I like squatting wider because then that's going to develop, that's going to help with all the isolation exercise that I'm doing for my groin and also my glute medius and minimus. That's going to help develop that chain more as those activate and get stronger. So I prefer wide. Now, there's also I think some of these guys go way too wide. So long term, if you're squatting like this, look at the leverage that's on your hip. Long term, you're going to need knee replacement by the time you get to 50 or 60 years old if you're squatting heavy and you're going this damn wide, okay? So I go just outside shoulder width. I make sure the toes are pointed out. And what I do is, you're going to notice here, I roll on the outside of my feet and I pick my toes up like this. This is what I do primarily with beginners. Okay, this is how I teach them. And I might even put a little bit of a plate under here so that they're forced to be back. This way, you don't see athletes doing this crap. If they have their feet rolled out here, if they have their feet rolled out correctly in this position here, what happens is that when they go down here, they are forced to sit back. As soon as you start front loading, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see this crap. So this forces them to be in that position here. So let's go in to see what this looks like. Why this is so effective for your knees too, and as far as protection goes, there's two elements here. One is, the farther we get our knees forward this way, the more knee pressure there is. The farther we get our knees back behind our ankles or in line with our ankles, the less knee pressure. So long term, that's going to be better on the knees. That's why box squatting is so effective. The other element here is the ballistic bouncing that you're going to do when you do a normal squat. This right here, this transition here, is going to put a lot of torque on your knees over time. With the box squat, you're separating the eccentric from the concentric, and that ultimately allows you to transition without having that ballistic movement on your knees. So another thing I want to address here is the back angle. You want to keep your back at a slight angle the whole time. And what you're going to do is you're going to notice I'm using my hips here, and that's what's going to ultimately be able to get you up. A lot of people will sit and they'll go like this. Okay? You're going to round slightly. If you notice, my back's rounding slightly here, but I'm not like this and I'm not like this. You just want to stay in a neutral kind of position on the way up. So as far as program design goes, I box squat. If I do legs twice a week, and on the first day, I box squat using percentages 77 to 82%. Sometimes I hit 85% and 90%, but usually those are the percentages that I stay around. Then the second exercise I do is a barbell RDL, or I do a barbell glute bridge. And the third exercise I do is a hamstring dominant exercise. And in a prior episode, we got into how to train the glutes and how to train the hamstrings, so you're going to want to check that out. So that's the first day. On the second day, what we do is we do speed squats, 50 to 60%. We use bands and chains. We're going to get into that in later episodes, why and how I do that. I do another hamstring dominant exercise, and the third exercise I do is I do a front-loaded lunge. So what I mean by a front-loaded lunge is I come down and I come up on the toe, and I really try to get nice and low, and I work into the front portion of the VMO and the vastus lateralis, and that's why so many trainers love front squats, because it works that portion. When you're doing a regular back squat on a box, it's going to work more of the middle portion of the quad and the glutes. So we do this exercise that way we don't have to do front squats, because I'm not a firm believer in front squats. I believe that the back squat, because you can lift so much more weight and you have so much more load, it's going to drive your strength levels up much greater than a front squat where you can't lift as much weight. So that's how we train all these elements, and we put all the different muscles groups together, and that's why we get the results in strength and speed that we do. If you enjoyed watching this video, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. For more information on our rehab and training videos, visit our playlist titled Educational Episodes.